With Last Blood coming up real soon, it's time to review one of my all-time favorite cinematic characters ever. Let's review First Blood. First Blood stars Sylvester Stallone, Brian Dennehy, Richard Crenna, and is directed by Ted Kotcheff. What's up, guys? We get to review a Rambo movie. First Blood is one of my favorite movies ever. Just because the character Rambo, I think, is one of the most misunderstood characters ever. You know, he's different than any other action hero out there. As a matter of fact, he was one of the first of his kind. And after this movie, there were so many knockoffs of the Rambo character, but I don't think they could ever capture the essence of who John Rambo was. And I think that first movie really stakes its claim. It really showcases a different type of action hero. And I'm really looking forward to digging into John Rambo as a character and this wonderful, wonderful movie. I served in the military for 24 years in the Air Force. And one question I do get a lot is, like, what's your favorite military movie? And if I'm being honest, I'm not like a military movie guy, as strange as that sounds. And I think that's just because a lot of military movies are very similar. You know, they have the same beats to them. And there are some great ones, don't get me wrong. Saving Private Ryan is phenomenal. But I have to say, I think I really enjoy First Blood. It's not really a military movie, but it involves a military character. And I like it because it covers a character after he leaves the military, which is kind of the state that I'm in right now. You know, I retired from the military back in 2016. And I have a lot of fond memories there, you know, a lot of great memories of being in the military. Friendships in the military are really unlike any other, and it's really hard to even describe them. But they're lifelong, they really are. And it really ties into the beginning of this movie, because I love how this movie starts. It's just John Rambo walking on this road in this northwestern town, you know, near Portland, Oregon. And you got that beautiful score by Jerry Goldsmith, which is one of the highlights of this movie, actually. It has probably one of the most underrated scores I've ever heard. But, you know, Rambo seems, I guess it's hard to call Rambo happy, but his most content at the beginning of this movie. You know, he's a loner. He doesn't really want to be around anybody. And he walks up on this family member of his old war buddy, Delmore Berry. And he's looking for Delmore, who is the last of his platoon. And of course, Delmore's wife tells him that Delmore died of cancer.
Brought it back from Nam. All that orange stuff that spread it around. Cut him down to nothing.
And so from this moment on, it kind of sets the movie into motion, because his mindset after this is that's it. He just lost his last friend. Now he is truly alone. And so it's kind of a somber beginning to this movie, and it's kind of a tone setter for where this movie is going to go. And if I could sidestep here just for a minute, because before I dig deep into the rest of this movie, because this is the type of movie that I want to cover like chronologically. When Stallone, got the script for this movie, he didn't really want to do it at all, and he was like after a long list of actors up for this role. You know, Stallone said, I think they even went to like farm animals before they finally got to him. But when he got the script, it was like a 3-hour movie. And he said that's really one of the big reasons why he didn't want to do it. And so he took the script, he tapered it down. He said, this is not a character that should be talking that much. And so he really cut all of his dialogue, except for like a few lines, out of the movie. And that's what made the movie that we see today. You know, he said the movie would have been like unwatchable if they would have released the intended version. But, scripts, they go through these revisions all the time anyway, so it's nothing new. But it's just an interesting anecdote to the story. But anyway, we get into the beginning of this movie. Rambo is walking down this small town in Hope, and this sheriff picks him up, played by the great character actor Brian Dennehy, who is just as important as Stallone is in this movie. Like, he is the perfect antithesis to John Rambo. He is that roadblock. He is always in Rambo's way.
He and I were friends when your mama was still wiping your nose. Now he's dead. is dead because of that psycho out there. Now you listen, boy, and you listen to me good. I'm gonna get that son of a bitch. And I'm gonna pin that Congressional Medal of Honor to his liver.
You know, this is small town life. They don't want any outsiders in there. And I'm sure there are a lot of towns like this even to this day. You know, these little small towns, they don't trust anybody. And so here comes this drifter. And so the Sheriff Teasel, picks him up, and he really just wants to get rid of him. You know, he sees Rambo as a stain.
We don't want guys like you in this town. Drifters. First thing you know, we got a whole bunch of guys like you in this town. That's why.
That doesn't need to be in his town. So his mission is to just get rid of him. Plus, he completely underestimates him. Rambo is underestimated throughout this whole movie, honestly. We're getting into one of my favorite scenes in the movie. I just love rebellious characters. Teasel has really just been treating Rambo like a piece of crap. And so he goes to drop him off on this bridge. And as soon as he drives away, what does Rambo do? He turns around and starts walking back into the town. I fell in love with this character. And so from this point on, he is just completely rebellious. He's a complete pain in the ass to Sheriff Teasel and his crew.
Oh, wait a second.
Hey, you got 3 seconds before I break your face in.
He means it.
And what's great about it is that it's really for nothing. You know, just the smallest thing set Rambo off. And, you know, at face value, we look at Rambo's actions and we think, wow, he really overreacted. You know, he should have just left the town. But I think him losing his friend and being completely on his own, and really his whole life, all he knows is war. All those actions led up to Rambo going to find his own war. And what better than this little small town of people that hate him? And one thing that I find so interesting about the Vietnam time period, that it is that one war where soldiers came home and they were treated really the opposite of the way soldiers are normally treated. Just to give you an example, when I came back from Afghanistan, I fly into the States, I go to BWI Airport in Baltimore, and as I'm leaving, there is this crowd of people on the left side of me and on the right side of me. I'm talking probably 100 people. And they're clapping. And it is really a humbling experience. You know, when you come back, first off, when you come back from deployment, all you can think about is just being back in the States. You know, you miss it so much. And I was over there for a year. So when you come back, to have just this warm welcome, it's really just a great moment. And then at the end of it, you know, I'm walking down this whole thing, and then this 4-star general just shakes my hand. And I don't know if you guys realize how big that is, but a 4-star general is somebody that you might see twice in your career. That's how distinguished these people are. Rambo, and really anybody from Vietnam, when they came back, they were literally spit on because of what they saw on the nightly news every night, which is completely unfair. That's one thing I love about this movie, is how it shines a light on that situation. And let's take a character from that situation and let's see how he's going to react, because he's going to a town that pretty much does that to him. Sheriff Teasel is not welcoming to Rambo at all. Doesn't offer him food to eat. You know, metaphorically spits on him.
All right, you're under arrest. You hear me? Now put your hands on the car. Now you put your hands on the car and you spread them. Now you're going to put your hands on that car.
And so Rambo's had enough. He's like, you know what? You're going to have to deal with me now. So they get Rambo to the jail cell. Another phenomenal scene. I mean, very memorable. Rambo's having all these like flashbacks of when he was in the war. You know, they really set the tone for how crazy this character is. You know, he's messed up in the head. And so the one scene that really sets everything into motion is when they want to shave Rambo. And you got this this character, Galt, that is just the biggest jerk, douchebag asshole that you could possibly imagine. And if you think Teasel is an asshole, wait till you see Galt. Galt is an asshole that really would kill Rambo if he could. But when they're shaving Rambo, he completely freaks out, and this is when he escapes. You know, he literally just goes through every cop in the building like they're nothing. Fun little anecdote too is that one character that he elbows in the face, he literally broke that guy's nose in real life. Which, you know, Stallone said he felt bad about that, but, you know, sometimes that happens. From this moment, Rambo goes into the woods. This is his turf. You know, when you come to his turf, you are royally screwed. And that's pretty much what happens to the cops. I mean, it turns into pretty much a slasher movie, but Rambo doesn't kill, these cops. He pretty much just gives them a warning. You have that iconic scene where he's got Teasel up against the tree and he's like, don't push it, or I'll give you a war you won't believe. That is such an awesome scene.
Don't push it. Don't push it, I'll give you a war you won't believe.
That is really the line that made Rambo as a character. After that line, we're like, this character is an icon. We're 30 minutes into the movie. That line is just so iconic. So of course the cops fail miserably. And then we get Colonel Trautman. Colonel Trautman is another phenomenal character in this. I like to call him the Loomis. I always compare everything to Halloween, but he is really kind of the Loomis here because Teasel knows that he's up shit creek without a paddle now. He is completely screwed. He has failed miserably. One of his team members has been killed by Rambo, who, Rambo didn't mean to kill the guy, but he was pushed. And when you push Rambo, you're going to pay the price. But Trautman's a great character too because he tells Teasel and he tells us, the viewer, what we're dealing with.
You don't seem to want to accept the fact that you're dealing with an expert in guerrilla warfare. With a man who's the best. With guns, with knives, with his bare hands. In Vietnam, his job was to dispose of enemy personnel. To kill. Period. Win by attrition. Well, Rambo was the best.
Rambo's backstory. What this guy lived through when he was in war. He wasn't just any soldier. He was a Green Beret, but he was like the top. He was the one guy that you did not want to mess with. It's like he was born to be a soldier, born to be a warrior. And we love characters like that. And Rambo is definitely one of the best, if not the best, in my mind. Now, the next scene I really want to talk about is that last scene, because really from this point on, it's a cat and mouse. They're trying their best to get to Rambo. You do have that great scene in the mines where he's got the rats all over him. I appreciate that scene because this is 1982 when this movie came out. Those were real rats. And these days they would just throw CGI rats on there for insurance purposes. But, back then, just to talk about a little bit of the behind the scenes on this movie, the effects of nature were in full force on this movie. Stallone said when they shot this movie, it was in the dead of winter. It was completely freezing outside and all he could wear was a tank top. And he had that little makeshift poncho that he made. But you could tell he's freezing. And you got that scene where Rambo's hanging off the cliff. Now, of course, that wasn't him that did that dive. But when he falls on the branch, that was him, and he literally broke his ribs. So I'm sure this shoot was probably one of the toughest that Stallone ever did. But, I digress. Jumping into that last scene, I really think this last scene is so important. If you think back to Rocky, when Stallone talks about that one scene that was so important that he almost didn't get to shoot, it was like the last day of shooting, he had one shot, and that scene, that he could go the distance, the scene where he's talking to Adrian. This scene right here is kind of like that scene. It's so important because if you didn't have this scene, then we wouldn't know Rambo's state of mind. After all this went on, Rambo has come through the town, completely obliterated it, and the whole time we're thinking, God, why is Rambo just, causing all this damage? Why is he blowing up this whole town? And it pretty much, it shows us why at the end. Stallone gives this amazing performance.
It's over, Johnny. It's over! Nothing is over! Nothing! You just don't turn it off! It wasn't my war! You asked me, I didn't ask you! And I did what I had to do to win, but somebody wouldn't let us win!
When he just breaks down and he talks about coming back from Vietnam and being spit on, and, his moments over there when his friend died, right there in his arm. He was blown up.
Joey said, yeah, and I went to get a couple of beers, and the box is wired, and he opened up the box, fucking blew his body all over the place. And he's laying there, and he's fucking screaming, there's pieces of him all over me, just like this, and I'm trying to pull him off, and it's my friend that's all over me.
And really, the only one that he has to listen to him is Trautman. Trautman's almost like a father figure to Rambo. And I will say that is probably one of my favorite all-time scenes in cinema history. It really is, just because of the feels that it gets. Every time I watch it, it's still just, because Stallone's performance is so strong. And you know, I'll even say this, like Stallone, I think is a very underrated actor. You know, when he has the right role, he really shines. He's done a lot of bad movies, you know, and he's pigeonholed into that action genre because he's done so many action movies. But the first Rambo movie, yeah, there's definitely some action there, but it's also a good character study. You know, it's definitely the realest of all the Rambo movies. So guys, I'm giving Rambo First Blood, actually it's just called First Blood, I'm giving it a Trapped on an Island. It definitely deserves it. It's one of my favorite action movies ever, and I will be reviewing Rambo 2 and 3. I might not get both those done by the time Last Blood comes out, but I'm definitely going to review them after if I don't get to them. I'd like to get at least one of them though. And I'll do a Rambo 4 Revisited, because I did do the fourth Rambo movie a couple years ago actually. But I've always wanted to go back and review that one again because it is a great movie, and it surprised the hell out of everybody when it came out because of how good it was. Nobody thought it was going to be good. So in the comments, post your thoughts on First Blood. Looking forward to hearing them. Also, be sure to come over to Killer Flicks, where we talk horror all day and every day, and on Fridays we do Free For All Fridays. Follow me at Drumdums on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd. Anyway guys, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day, and they drew First Blood, not me.